everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalac. Today, our guest is coming all the way from Miami in the United States. He has a law firm and offices in New York, in Miami, and he will talk to us about how he moved from self-employed to being a real business, growing and thriving business. And his name is Greg Ward, and Greg actually over the years is opening his company in 2012, covered over $500 million for his clients in settlements over 100 million. They had 50% annual growth rate and over 22 settlements with over $1 million. So some incredible record. He's also an entrepreneur. He gives back to community, and I'm very grateful that he took time today to be with us and share his experience. So Greg, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I grew up in relatively poor. My parents were both poor, lower middle class, or lower class in the United States, which probably is better than a lot of people for sure, but we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And my path forward, I thought, to be affluent was to go to law school and become a lawyer. And I had some bumps in the road, but I eventually went to law school and graduated at the top of my class. And as you point out, I went to work for a very large law firm in the United States. It was in the top 200 law firms of size and was making pretty good money. I was making over six figures back in the late 90s and early 2000. But I quickly realized that was not a path to real success. And I thought about 2 years in that I could start my own firm. I had been a door-to-door salesman back when I was in college. I would go selling stuff door-to-door, copiers, fax machines, windows, siding, home improvements, that kind of thing. And I thought, wow, I have skills that can sell. I should go and start my own firm. And so after about 5 years, I did start my own firm. And when you talk about an entrepreneurial journey, that's really where it started. It actually started before that. I started studying how to start and run a company. And I read a lot of books. So my first big suggestion to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, read a lot. If you don't read a lot, watch a lot of videos on how to run a company, how to lead, how to manage accounting. And this is true for any country. I think that we're in Miami, so this is, I think, the hub of the world in some ways. New York too. And many of the same problems that we have here in the United States in businesses, you will have around the world. And we'll get to some of those problems. Because what I like to do is I want to try and share with you all the mistakes I made so that you don't make those same mistakes. And all the mistakes I've seen made in my career as a lawyer. And I don't practice anymore. I just run the business, and we have over 200 employees now, so I don't have time to go to court or anything. I just have to run it. Anyway, so I started my own firm for the first time back in like 2007, I want to say. And that's where I started my entrepreneurial journey for real.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you have now over 200 employees. I want to ask you, I do believe that there is a specific mindset, and entrepreneurship is definitely not for everyone. Do you feel that you always had, because you studied law, and there are some people that study law or they want to be a doctor and they enjoy doing the job, but they're not actually, it's a different having the skill of, for example, being a lawyer and the knowledge, expertise, than actually learning how to run a business. So do you feel that this is something that some people have it in them, or it's something that if you're hungry you will learn? What is your experience? Let's say when it comes to lawyer, for example.
It's great you pointed those two examples, because both doctors and lawyers, it's very hard for them to become entrepreneurs. The way the legal education in the United States is taught, they teach you everything that can go wrong. And your job as a lawyer is to avoid that. And so when you're trying to start a business, entrepreneurial is extremely high risk. And so you have all these things that are telling you can't do that, you can't do that. Now, when I grew up poor, I never had anything anyway. So for me, okay, I'm going to be poor again. I was poor before, I'll be poor again. I can handle that. But for most people who get into that, into the legal profession, and I even think it's worse in medicine because, and I say that meaning that they don't teach you how to run a business. And first thing is mindset, you're right. You've got to be able to tolerate extraordinary amounts of risk. And and for me, I always thought, my friends said, are you leaving to go start your own firm? Isn't that risky? I said, it's riskier to be 100% dependent on a boss and whether they like you or not, than it is to be 100% dependent on yourself. So for me, even looking at the risk, I always would rather bet on myself than bet on somebody else. And so I just looked at the risk differently. But yeah, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. And being a real entrepreneur, not a lot of people like to have their side jobs. But if you're all in and you stake your family and your ability to have a home on your business, you're a real entrepreneur. That's the risk. And then if you can get that risk, that's the first thing you got to do as an entrepreneur.
And I love that you mentioned that, because a lot of people like one step in, they want, but they don't want to get the security. And I tell sometimes to people who come to me and they want to start something, I tell them, look, you have to jump in. That's the only way, because then you have the fire burning. You're like, I have to make it. And I see some people, if you're not hungry or you have things provided, there's nothing wrong with that, provided for you, it will not drive you so much as when you have to make it, like you have no other choice. So that's very inspiring. But share with us a little bit more about how was it for you, like when you switched? Did you study first, or was it a rapid decision? And yeah, how was the whole experience moving into, and you started being self-employed, right? So you were still practicing a law just for yourself.
That's right. I had an office in my garage and a little table and a computer. That was my first law firm, which we'll get through all my failures. What I want to recommend to your listeners right now is the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I read that book more than 50 times. And when you say there's no other alternative, he has a burn the boats example where you land on an island and you burn the boats. You have no other choice. When you have no option, you will be successful. And you take calculated risks, but at some point you do have to take a risk and you have to risk losing everything. But yeah, so I was self-employed and I started and I studied a lot, but there's nothing like starting a business and making you learn it for real. The biggest problems I've had in my history of running businesses has always been personnel issues, people issues. And I can tell you in my career as a lawyer, the biggest problems with business are usually personnel or people issues. So the first big issue that you're going to probably face is either one, hiring your first employee, or bringing in a partner. And those are both very potentially dangerous areas where a lot of people get messed up. And hiring the first employee, we tend to always hire people or partner with people who are just like us. And that's, I think, a big mistake for most entrepreneurs. We need somebody who complements our skill sets and somebody who's got a different personality than us. You pointed out being the service provider as a lawyer, right? Somebody who actually provides the legal services, right? That doesn't qualify me to be an accountant, right? That doesn't qualify me to do the numbers. That doesn't qualify me to market. And so I want to bring in, if I want to do the work, I've got to bring in somebody who can run the actual business side of things. And what happens a lot of times is people will have an idea for a beautiful business and they'll bring in an investor. And I've seen a lot of businesses go bad because the investor wants to make money. The person who has the beautiful idea is 100% committed to the idea. They don't value the revenue as much, right? And so there'll be fights over, we're not making any money because the investor wants to make a return, and the service provider will be like, yeah, but I'm doing the best I can do. And they just disconnect because they don't have alignment with their vision. So I can tell you that even now at my stage, we have over 200 employees. My biggest headaches are personnel headaches, finding the right people for the right job and making sure they're operating at their highest level daily, because we all have issues, right? And that can kill a business early. I think worse than not having enough money or not having a commitment is having the wrong people around you. That could really kill your business, so be careful about that.
And I see as a consulting that a lot of companies actually that are fast growing now here in Dubai. It's definitely the biggest problem. And unfortunately, a little bit mentality of a lot of CEOs I come across is the turnover. This is a very moving area. People come and go, and turnover of staff is huge. And sometimes they're like, but why would I invest in training? They come and go. It's a mindset where you have to understand, because if you move the people, I don't know who said this, Bob Proctor or someone I remember I listened, he said, if you move people from your company, you only have a building, you don't have a company. So actually the people will make your company and the culture there. And I agree. And I think that for me, consulting, the hardest, I can write the process and everything, and you train people and then you go back and they haven't even implemented 10% and you go back again, and it's ongoing process. And then sometimes, yes, they don't want to fire someone because they like them, but they see they're not performing well. So you're dragging in letting go of that person. And it's tough because we are like business, but we also are human. So we don't want to have that. But tell me some mistakes that you made when it comes to starting a business, maybe with sales or marketing or whatever, something that comes to your mind that was
many things. So many things. First big lesson is properly value your service. A lot of times we believe that if we are the low cost provider or the discounted provider, that will increase sales. It does not, right? Especially when you're dealing with professional services, that's lawyers, doctors, accountants. We think, okay, I'm going to charge half of what everybody else charges. You're still going to get beat up over your bill, right? That's going to happen. So you need to learn to value your service. When you talked about, by the way, firing people, how to do it. I'm very empathic. I love people a lot. I'm Christian, so I'm like, I really want to try and live those values of bringing people in and helping support them. But here's how you fire someone. It comes from the movie Moneyball, and it was Jonah Hill. Brad Pitt tells Jonah Hill how to fire somebody. You go in, you sit down in a room with your back to the door so you can get up and leave, and you say, I'm sorry it's not working out. Here's your severance package. I'll write you a letter of reference or whatever. And you say, I appreciate your time, but we just don't have a path forward. And then you get up and walk out of the room, right? You should have another person there to help offboard them, but don't get into the discussion about how to improve them. Don't get into the discussion about what they did wrong. Don't get into the discussion about how you were wrong, whatever it is. Stop, just have the conversation directly, and then get up and walk out. Because if you stay, either they're going to try and convince you you're wrong or argue with you. They'll never agree. Oh, a little thumbs up. They'll never agree with what your reasons are, and they're going to hate you. The more you talk, the more they're going to hate you going out. So just make it quick and rip the Band-Aid off. They're professionals. Hopefully they'll move on, and hopefully you can do it and get maybe confidentiality and release with a severance package or something. But just be very direct about it, and that's not the point to train them with what they did wrong. If they ask why, just say, look, we're in two different places and we decided to go in a different direction. That's it. If you want to work with someone who's already been through there, give me a call, follow me on Instagram. We have plenty of content that will help you grow your business, and we look forward to seeing you at the top.